गिर गया
सेंसिटिव रखते हैं ना मेरा तो उसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम है.
किधर रखना है कुर्सी पे
उस कुर्सी पे जाके मैं दिखते रहा क्या हो रहा है. वो कुर्सी इधर है, वो वाली कुर्सी
इस पे कुर्सी आ जाओ. शुक्रिया. एक इधर रखिए.
So now let's try to restart. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيد المرسلين يا خاتم النبيين يا شفيع المذنبين يا أنيس الغريبين يا رحمة للعالمين. صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Today, inshallah, we'll be talking about the Umrah, and there's several people that inshallah will be going soon, so that's kind of why we decided to do this and do the video. And of course, like everything in Islam, there are the apparent aspects of things, and then there are the deeper aspect of things which keep getting deeper and deeper, which all are included in the spiritual aspect of, I don't know why it's doing this. Huh?
The battery weak?
We just recharged it.
Oh.
Yeah. So I don't know. So if you have to, we'll go back to the old system. But the Umrah, of course, is talked about as a minor Hajj. Umrah does not replace the Hajj. The orange वाला जो है ना नीचे वो दबा. So the Umrah does not replace the Hajj. So it doesn't matter, you can do, it keeps doing this. I don't know what it's doing. It didn't have any problems Friday. You can do, 100 Umrahs, doesn't mean you've done the Hajj. Okay? And the obligation of the Hajj remains, regardless of how many Umrah you do. But there are aspects of the Umrah that overlap with the Hajj. And so, inshallah, we'll be talking about the Umrah today, specifically, not going into the Hajj, because that expands. Today is Technology Day, so that kind of expands. Let's go. Yeah, gain. ऊपर. Yeah. So that okay, that should be good. Yeah. And I'll just do it the old-fashioned way, hold the mic. So, but the Umrah, the reality of the Umrah is very simple. Well, or the basic arkan or the rights of the Umrah are very simple. The reality of it is very great when you start looking at what you're supposed to be seeing and doing and experiencing as you're doing the Umrah. So, 3 aspects of the Umrah: the Ihram, the Tawaf and Sa'i, and then the cutting or the shaving of the hair. So, and we're going to kind of go cyclically, kind of mention things, come back to things, and keep doing back and forth, so that makes it easier to remember. So, it's also interesting, and one point to note and to understand the terms here: Ihram, Masjid al-Haram, the Haram, or Masjid al-Haram, the Haram. All of these are from Haram, which are things that are forbidden. And the reason that the root here is the same is that in these states, or when you're in this condition, there are many things that normally would have been lawful that are now unlawful. So you have to tread very lightly, and you have to be very careful with everything that you're doing. The Umrah and the Hajj both are at a conscious level, but they represent a level of love where the person loses himself. But even in that state of losing yourself, you can't lose sight of what you're doing. Of course, everything is for the pleasure of Allah and His Messenger, and that is the basis of everything in Islam. That should be the basis of everything in our lives. And if that is not the basis of everything in our lives, then there's something wrong with our life. So as far as the Ihram, I'm just going to go over the basic arkan of the Umrah first, and then we'll come back, inshallah. So, so the initial arkan, or the initial rite of the Umrah, is the Ihram. So for men, that's 2 unstitched sheets. It really doesn't matter what color they are. However, for the past 200 years, white has been the color. So you'll see everybody in white ihram. So again, for men, it's 2 unstitched sheets. For women, it's their regular clothes. However, they cannot wear niqab, nor can they wear clubs, and nor can you wear shoes. So even for women, they can't wear the niqab, the facial covering, nor can they put on gloves like you see many women do, or some women do these days. So when you're in the state of ihram, you can't do that. So for them, again, it's normal clothes. For the men, it's 2 unstitched sheets, the bottom loincloth, which is the izhar, and that can be tied in various ways. The easiest way to really tie it is like a damad, where you kind of knot up the ends and you wrap it around, and then you tuck it up underneath. It makes it easier to move and to sit and do all the other things. Another way of wrapping it would be simply to wrap it and then just tuck it up underneath, which sometimes can limit the movement. The upper sheet, which basically goes over both shoulders except during tawaf. So you cover both shoulders and you wrap it around. The intention, for the ihram is, basically the sunnah of Rasulullah when he went for the Hajj was that he made 2 rakat. So what you do, and the basic here is, what you do is before you put on the ihram, you should cut your hair, trim your hair, and shave your pubic hair, cut your nails, and do all of these things. Take ghusl, and then you put on some perfume or some ithar, actually, before you put on the ihram. Okay, because right now you haven't. Even if you can do this even after you've done the ihram or put on the ihram, but you haven't made the niyyah of the ihram. Okay, so there is a distinction there. Rasulullah when he went for the Hajj, when he came to the miqat, and we'll go over what miqat is in a second. he made, there is where, he put on some perfume, and then he made 2 rakat, and then that was the beginning of the niyyah for the ihram. So the niyyah for the umrah should be Allahumma labbaik, Allahumma umrah. That, oh Allah, I'm here, oh Allah, I'm here for the umrah. But you should also, with that intention, also state that, oh Allah, if there is any unforeseen event or difficulty that comes in the way that prevents me from doing the umrah, then I will release myself from the ihram. If you do that, then if something does happen, for example, you get there and they won't let you in, or whatever else happens that's unforeseen, you can come out of your ihram without giving dam. Dam is to sacrifice. So if let's say, I make the intention, I put on the ihram, and now something happens, and for some reason I'm not able to go, or not able to get there to make the umrah, well, then what happens, if I didn't make the intention before, if I simply made the intention that I'm going to make the umrah, well, you got to make the umrah. And if you don't make the umrah, now you got to sacrifice an animal that has to feed the people, the poor people within the haram. If you make it this other way, though, where you kind of say, oh Allah, if something happens and I can't do it, and something does happen, then you don't have to do that. So that frees you from that. But, once so you have to put on the ihram before you come to the miqat. So the miqat are certain places, depending on where you're coming from, where if you go beyond that point before you put on the ihram, you have to go back to put the ihram on, and then you come back. If you don't, then you have to give sacrifice. So you can sacrifice an animal, and again, it has to feed the poor people in the haram. The haram is the sanctuary around Mecca. So within that sanctuary, the people have to be fed. So if you're stuck over here, then you got to find some way of getting that done over there. So that's why the intention is also very important, so you don't get into that situation. Once you put on the ihram, you make your salat, and now you've made that firm intention. Now you cannot cut your hair. You cannot put on any perfume. You cannot cover your head for men. For women, of course, they can't wear the niqab. They can't cover their face. You cannot, the feet should also be showing the top portion, that top bone. So the best thing to wear really are flip-flops. Good pair of flip-flops, and that way, what's not supposed to be covered is not covered. Otherwise, wearing shoes or anything, again, anything that violates the condition of the haram, you have to give a sacrifice. Okay? You cannot hunt. You cannot have any relation with your spouse. You cannot even propose marriage to somebody in the condition of ihram. All of those things are haram in that condition. So even like somebody puts on a moisturizer that has a scent on it, he just violated the ihram. So that should be, you can put those things on before you put the ihram on. Okay, and it is sunnah to put, ithar on before the ihram. But once you've done that, you can't do that. And let's say you're putting on the ithar on, you put on the ihram and you're about to make salat. You can put the ithar on your body, but you can't put it on the ihram. Okay. So, I guess, is that aspect of it clear?
What about like dry skin you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, you need to put something on before, or if you put a moisturizer on, it can't have any scent.
So you can't put on a moisturizer without a scent?
Without a scent, yes.
And what about any medicine?
Like topical medication?
Maybe some kind of skin medicine.
Yeah, again, it can't have any scent to it.
Okay.
So if it has any scent to it, you can't use it. Like if you have like somebody has, let's give you an example of like psoriasis or eczema, and they have like a steroid cream, but that cream, doesn't have any scent to it, so long as it doesn't have any scent to it, then they could use that. Okay.
So for the ihram, so can you change it, during the...
Yes. So if it becomes dirty, you can change it.
Let's say to repeat that question.
So the question is, can you change the ihram? So there is no condition that you have to end the Umrah with the ihram that you put on. You could change it 100 times,
Okay.
and that would still be fine. And that's also why it's good to take, a couple of ihram. So that way if it becomes dirty, you can change it out, and you're still good to go.
One more question. So do you have any checklist, since you have to follow many procedures not to violate the rules actually?
Yes.
So niyat and other stuff. So.
Yeah, there actually are a couple of good videos on YouTube where they do kind of give a checklist. I want to focus more on certain other aspects, so I'm kind of going through this quickly.
You share those videos.
Yeah, so there's one that's animated. If you go like, how do you perform Umrah? That's one of the first ones that comes up. It's like an 8-minute video. It's very concise and pretty decent. And then there's another one in Urdu. There's a Zubair Riaz. He lives in Medina Munawwara. And he also has, Umrah, how to perform Umrah according to the Sunnah. And it's actually a very good video.
Maybe we can post that in the group.
Yeah, we'll post that in the group. So that way, you can look those up and look at those. And there's certain things that I'm going to mention, but and you'll be able to see this video as well, inshallah. But again, so no perfume, no cutting of the hair, no clipping of the nails, no killing anything. As far as no hunting, you can't kill a fly. If you end up killing an ant accidentally, then that's fine. Even like with the fly, it's sitting on you and you do this and you end up killing it, you gotta, give a sacrifice. So all of those conditions in the ihram, no cutting down trees, no doing this, it's just, you are in a condition, and I'm going to repeat this later. You should be in a condition of the lover, where the lover is going to his beloved and he has forgotten himself. And so, all these other difficulties that come in the way should not be even noticed. Oh, another important point to note, you cannot wear underwear underneath the ihram. It's just the 2 sheets, and that's it for men. Nothing with, and the sheets cannot have any stitching on them. Again, for women, regular clothes, just again, the face and the hands and the feet can't be covered. They wear flip-flops like men wear flip-flops. Okay. So that's the arkan or the basic arkan or rights of the ihram. So now you've made your intention, and so like for people that are flying in from over here, if you're going straight into Makkah, you're going to pass the miqat before you get to Makkah, before you get to Jeddah. Jeddah is beyond the miqat. So that's why you should put on the ihram. Some places, people will put them on the plane. That may not be feasible. If you're landing in Europe somewhere, when I went for Hajj in 2003, we went to the Frankfurt airport. The airport there actually has a place where you can pay. It's like, at that time it was $6. You'd pay them $6, and you had a whole shower and everything. So we just put on the ihram there. But solid. I do. So then so that makes that aspect of the ihram. Okay. So now the next part of the Umrah is the tawaf and the sa'i. So the tawaf, of course, the simple explanation of the tawaf is 7 circuits around the Kaaba. But there's a specific way of doing it, starting it, and the way of starting it, you start at the Hajar Aswad. And they have this green light on the corner pointing towards that. So this is the starting point. If you can get close to it, which generally is almost impossible, and actually touch the Hajar Aswad, then you kiss the Hajar Aswad, you make the intention for tawaf, and you start the tawaf. If you cannot get close to it, and you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. If you cannot get close to it, then, from wherever you are at that line, you simply point to it, kiss your finger, say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, kiss your finger, and that's kissing the Hajar Aswad, and now you move on. Okay. For the men, the first 3 rounds is what's called the ramal, which is where you move very fast. You move fast and firm. You're not running, but you're planting your feet firm, you're going firm, and at this point, again, the other point that I forgot to mention now, at this point the ihram changes for the men. Because before, when ihram in time of salat, both shoulders are covered. When you're making the tawaf, the ihram comes up underneath the right shoulder, the right arm should be showing, and you put it over, the left shoulder. So for the ramal, for the first 3 circuits, again, firm, fast movement, if you can. If there's a rush and you can't, pushing someone is like Rasulullah ﷺ equated that, pushing someone in Hajj or Umrah is like committing suicide. So you have to, and you will see this while you're there. You'll see people that just, mow people out of the way. All right. This is that time when people are coming for vacation. It's mowing people out of the way. That, again, Rasulullah ﷺ said this is suicide. Because some companions were kind of moving and doing this, and he asked them, he said, are you killing yourself? So the adab, the respect, and also looking out for everyone, that's all part of the Umrah and the Hajj. So you can't lose sight of that. So again, and sometimes, like if you're with your wife, it may not be feasible for you to do that because of conditions there as well. And people do go missing, which is sad to say, but that's the reality of things. Personally know people that were almost taken, and personally know people that have gone missing. So, again, if you're with your wife, you may not be able to do the ramal normally, but in your mind, in your heart, you should be doing that. Again, you move firmly, quickly, and we're going to go over the history of this as well, inshallah, in a little while. And at this time, looking at the Kaaba is also ibadah. So simply to look at the Kaaba is worship. Just like Rasulullah said, to look at Ali is also worship. Okay, so look at the Kaaba is also worship. So when you're making tawaf, be aware of your surroundings, but as much as you can, look at the Kaaba. And you can be making any dua, any zikr. Of course, the best of those things is, salawat on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you arrive at Rukni Yamani, so you have the Hajar Aswad corner, and then you go all the way around. You have to go around the Hatim. You can't go inside of that semicircle. You have to go around that. And then when you get so you pass one corner, you start at the Hajar Aswad, you pass one corner, you pass the next corner, and then you come, and this third corner, which, is Rukn Yamani. Okay, so if you're there, if you're close to it, touch it. And we'll go over the history of Rukn Yamani as well. So if you're there, you touch it. If you're not, you touch it from your heart. And from Rukn Yamani back to Hajar Aswad, you recite رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Okay. So simple dua, most people know it. So this is what you do, between Rukn Yamani and Hajar Aswad. When you come back to Hajar Aswad, again, point towards it, Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and the next round. So the first 3 rounds, again, firm and fast for men, women, normal speed. Last 4 rounds, normal speed, normal walking. Okay. But again, each time you make, same dua, Rabbana, and at that point, rest of the time, any dua you want, any zikr you want, just as you're doing this. Once you finish 7, okay, so now that part of the tawaf is over. So now you go to Maqam Ibrahim. So Maqam Ibrahim, when you look at the Kaaba, you have Hajar Aswad, you have the door right there beside that. And then over here you have Maqam Ibrahim. So you go there, and if you can't, anywhere in the masjid, is still allowed. But if you can, then go behind that and you make 2 rakat. Okay. Surah Kafirun in the first rakat, Qul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun, and Surah Ikhlas in the second rakat. It's not mandatory, but this is what Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would do in general. So Surah Kafirun first rakat, Surah Ikhlas second rakat. After the 2 rakat, constantly you're making dua, go and drink Zamzam. And when you drink Zamzam, drink it standing up. You recite salawat on Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, standing and drink it. And normally we're commanded to drink slowly. For Zamzam, drink it fast and and get it all down.
And face the Qibla.
And face the Kaaba. It used to be you'd go down into the well area. Now they've shut all that down. So now they're just kind of pitchers around where you get the water and you just stand there and you can drink. Okay. So now from here, after you drink the Zamzam, then you go to Safa. So this is the Say, so Safa and Marwa. So you should, used to be you could actually get onto Safa, but now I think they blocked that off now. So you just get as close as you can. You face the Qibla, you recite, and if you remember it, recite it from memory. If you don't remember it, verse number 158 of Surah Baqarah. And so verse 158, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajeem, Inna as-safa wal marwata min sha'air Allah. فمن حج البيت أو التمر فلا جناح عليه أن يتطوف بهما ومن تتطوع خيرا فإن الله شاكر عليم. Okay, so recite this, and again, if you memorize it, recite it. If not, you can pull it up, verse 158 of Surah Baqarah. Behold, Safa and Marwa are the signs or the symbols of Allah. So if those who visit the house in season or at other times should compass them around or should go between them, and it is no sin in them. And I'm going to go over why it says there's no sin in going to Safa and Marwa. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put that wording in there? Okay. And if anyone obeys his own impulse to good, be sure that Allah is He who recognizes and knows. So, the picture said kursi there. Okay, so you recite this, and again, this is all done while you're facing the Qibla or the Kaaba. You can see the Kaaba. You should be able to see the Kaaba from there. And then you raise your hand, say Allahu Akbar. So Rafa, then Allahu Akbar Takbir, and then you recite La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu yuhyi wa yumitu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. La ilaha illallah wahdah anjaza wa'dah wa nasara 'abdah wa hazama al-ahzaba wahdah. So recite this, and I'm actually going to post it on, I'll get copies of it and post it on the WhatsApp site, so that way people will have it. So you recite this, and then you recite any dua, for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, for the whole ummah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then again you say Allahu Akbar, and you recite the same dua. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah wahdah, la ilaha illallah wahdah, wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu yuhyi wa yumitu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. La ilaha illallah wahdah, la ilaha illallah wahdah, أنجز وعده ونصر عبده وهزم الأحزاب وحده. So you recite this again, and again you make dua again. And then again, Allahu Akbar, and then again the same dua, and again dua for your family, your loved ones, for yourself, for the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then you leave Safa towards Marwa. And the initial part you walk, and then there'll be 2 green lights there, and we'll talk about why they're there. And then you run. And then after that, after that second green light, you start walking again. And then you get to Marwa. And then at Marwa, you ascend Marwa, or you get as close as you can, facing the Kaaba. Same dua, same process. You stay there. You don't recite the ayat again, but you recite the dua. You make dua, and then you leave, and then again back to Safa. Same thing over, and then again back. And so going from Safa to Marwa is 1. Coming from Marwa to Safa is 2. And then 3 is back to Safa, and then to Marwa, and then 4 is back to Safa, and 5 is back to Marwa, and then 6 is back to Safa, and then 7 is Marwa. And when you end there, now you simply end. No more. In your heart you should constantly be making dua. But there's no formal dua now. Okay. And then at this point now, and there are plenty of barber shops around. So for men, for the men who shave their heads, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made 3 dua for them. And for the men who simply cut their hair, he only made 1 dua for them. 3 is better than 1. Okay. So and even if you cut your hair, you can't simply I clip my hair. It has to be cut all around. Yeah.
For men.
Yeah, for men. For women, the cutting of the hair is the length of the fingertip from the bottom, and that's it. No shaving of the head. And I have to say that because there was a time when, when the Wahhabis started spreading their fitna, they would actually make the women shave their heads. Yeah.
And the running, is that also in the Safa and Marwa, is that in the Say, is that for women also?
Yes, that's for women as well. So in the Say, even the women are going to run.
Between the green lights?
Yeah. If they can't, that's a different issue.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If they can't, that's a different issue. Okay. But if they can, then they should move quickly.
Or at least walk fast. Right?
Yeah, walk fast. Okay. And we'll go over why there. Okay. So, it's not, of course, their running is not going to be the same as a man's running. And that should be clear. When the women are moving fast, they should be taking care as to not, expose things.
Yes.
So there's always that parda, that hijab that should exist.
And you've got to watch out for the football players over there.
Yeah.
They'll mow you down. I've seen that.
Yeah, so you have to be careful. You need to be aware of your surroundings at all times. And while you're still aware, you should still be lost. And now we're going to get into that. So this is the Umrah. As far as the arkan of the Umrah, this is basically it. Okay. Now we get into the other aspects of it, and the more spiritual aspects of it, which are why you should be going to begin with. Okay. And as I said, we're going to be it's going to be cyclical. We're going to go over things that I didn't go over. So there's a scholar, a Sheikh Abu Bakr Shibli, rahmatullah alayh, who is one of the Khalifa or the main Khalifa of Junaid Baghdadi, rahmatullah alayh. So if you look at Sayyid Abdul Qadir Jilani, rahmatullah alayh, he said that he took his tariqat from Abdul Qadir, from Junaid Baghdadi, rahmatullah alayh. Okay, so Abu Bakr Shibli is his Khalifa. One of his students went for the Hajj. And when he came back for the Hajj, he comes to his Sheikh and said, I went for the Hajj. So the Sheikh started asking him questions. Okay. And we'll go over those questions as I go over certain aspects of this and why we do certain things in the Hajj and what you should truly be seeing when you're there. Unfortunately, most of us, when we go there, we see the big buildings, we see this, we see that, and we never see what we're supposed to see. Which again, if you're going there, you need to have that intent. So the first question he asked him, he said, the student said, oh, I went for the Hajj, And normally you expect, oh, congratulations, you made the Hajj. And I'm just going to go over the aspects of this conversation that cover the Umrah. Okay. So his first question was, did you make, when you decided to go, did you make a firm intention to go for the Hajj? And this also applies again here for Umrah. Did you make a firm intention to go for the Umrah? And the student says, yes. So he says, when you made that intention, along with that intention, did you intend to give up all of those things that you've been doing since you were born that violate the spirit of the Hajj, or here the spirit of the Umrah? And he said, no. He said, well, you didn't make firm intention then. And this is what we were talking about, when you enter the Ihram, so many things become haram. To the extent that you can't cut your hair, you can't put on a cap, you can't cut your nails, you can't put on any perfume. It doesn't matter how bad you stink. And in the heat and you sweat, none of that matters. Because your condition is the condition of the lover who has forgotten himself. He is going to the reality is he should be going to see his beloved. And so that intention, which is the foundation of everything, should be the start of all of this. And that's why he said, when you made that intention, did you intend also to give up all of this other stuff that you've been doing since you were born that violates the spirit of the Hajj, or the spirit of the Umrah now? And he said, no. He said, well, you didn't do it. Okay. He said, then the next question is, did you put on the Ihram, and before you put on the Ihram, did you remove your clothes? And of course, it's like, you have to remove your clothes if you're going to put on the Ihram. And so he says, yes. He says, when you removed your clothes, did you remove from yourself all of those evils and faults that are within you? And he said, no. And he says, well, you didn't remove your clothes then. Right. He says, did you do ghusl and wudu before you put on the ihram? Did you bathe before you put on the ihram? And he said, yes. He says, did you purify yourself from all the evils and faults that lie within you again? And he said, no. He says, you didn't do the ghusl. This is a very high level. This is what we shoot for, knowing we're going to fall short. But we still got to shoot for it. If you set your goals low, you're never going to get anywhere. Then he says, once you put on the ihram, because once you put on the ihram, now you say labbaik. This is when the labbaik starts. Labbaik, Allahumma labbaik la sharika laka, labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata laka wal mulk, la sharika lak. Oh my Lord, I am here. So he says, did you recite the labbaik? He said, yes. He said, and did you hear the response to the labbaik? You're calling to your Lord saying, I'm here. Did he respond to you? He said, no. He said, then you didn't say labbaik. He says, did you enter the precincts of the haram? That area around Mecca, that is all that sanctuary. And he said, yes. He said, again, coming back to those initial points, did you at that time, leave off all of those things that are haram? And he said, no. He said, well, you didn't enter the haram. Did you enter the masjid? And he Did you, or rather, before that, did you enter Makkah? Did you enter the city of Makkah? He said, yes. He said, when you entered the city, did you see the hereafter? And this is one of the interesting things, before they put up all of this nonsense around the Kaaba. When you would go there before, if you look at Makkah, it sits in a valley with all of these mountains. And you literally felt like the mountains were going to fall on top of you. And of course, when you go to Medina Munawwara, it's nothing but peace. But Makkah is the Jalal. It's the Jalal of Allah. And this is what you should feel. And this is what you should see. And this is a resemblance of what we should be expecting, because in the hereafter, the sun is going to be sitting right on top of you. Right on top of us. Right? There is nothing. There is no shade except for the shade of Allah. And only for the select few. You are in this, this emptiness, yet you're still surrounded by everybody. And this is what you should feel when you enter Makkah. You should see the hereafter. He said, did you see it? He said, no. He said, then you didn't enter Makkah. He said, did you enter the masjid and see the Kaaba? He said, yes. He said, did you see that entity due to which the Kaaba is visited? And he said, no. He said, you didn't see the Kaaba. The Kaaba is not four walls. The reality of the Kaaba is not four walls. Now I'm going to take a break from his conversation here. I'm going to go back over some things that I kind of alluded to before, but are important to understand historically and spiritually. And this gets into the essence of the Kaaba. And also the ihram, and why we wear the ihram during the tawaf the way we do now, even though that is not the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam is to wear the ihram, the top cloth, on covering both shoulders, even during tawaf. We don't do that. Why don't we do that? So now coming, I guess, initially with the Kaaba itself, the history of the Kaaba. The Kaaba sits underneath Baytul Ma'mur. So if you go straight up through all of the heavens, in the seventh heaven is Baytul Ma'mur. Baytul Ma'mur is the Kaaba in the heavens for the angels. This is what they make tawaf around. Directly underneath that is the Kaaba on this earth. The reality of it is that this Kaaba was actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had commanded the angels to build it, and they had built it. Then it was washed away in the flood of Nuh alayhi salam. And this is why in the Quran, because there are those people who will dispute with you and say, no, Ibrahim alayhi salam is the one who built it. Well, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't tell Ibrahim alayhi salam to build it. If you read the verse, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam to raise the foundations, which means the foundations were already there. And also in Surah Ibrahim, Surah number 14, verse 37, if you read the verse, when Ibrahim alayhi salam leaves Bibi Hajara and Ismail alayhi salam there, and as he's leaving, he makes a dua to Allah, and in that dua he says that, oh Allah, I'm leaving my family next to your house. So this is when Ismail alayhi salam is simply a baby, before the command has come to raise the foundation. So again, there is something there. That is why he left them there. So Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam are commanded to raise the foundations, which is what they do. The Kaaba at that time is not the same shape as it is today. The Hatim, which is that semicircle next to the Kaaba, is actually inside of the Kaaba. So what happens is, Ibrahim al-Islam builds this. Later on, and I forget, this is a few hundred years before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the forefathers of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam suggested that this house be distinguished from all other houses, so they put a sheet on it. And this is where the kiswa comes from. And every year they'll put the kiswa is that sheet that covers the Kaaba. So every year they would put a new sheet on it. And then, it got so heavy that they were afraid that it was going to collapse the Kaaba. So then they started changing every year. They would remove the sheets and put a new sheet every year. And this is why this continues on even today. Because it distinguishes it from every other house. The Kaaba that Ibrahim al-Islam built was rectangular. The roof was lower. There were two doors to it. One where the door is today, but both doors were ground level. You had one there, and then you had another door at Rukn Yamani, opposite to it. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to some narrations, was 25, in other narrations he was 35. More than likely he was 35. This is when the that story where he places the black stone in its place, which most people know about. So there was damage to the Kaaba because of some flooding, and so Quraysh decided to redo it. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but eventually, before they start doing it, the decision is made that only halal money will be used for this because it's the house of Allah. So even they had that concept. They weren't going to use money from prostitution or gambling or all the other vices that they had, that they knew were vices, or money that they had collected from the idols. The only halal money will be used in this. But they also decided to change it where the door would be higher, so they could control who went in and out, and only one door, and the roof would be higher. The reason they stopped where they did was because they ran out of halal money, so that's where they ended it. So the Hatim part is, even though technically it's really inside of the Kaaba, but when you look at it, it looks like it's outside the Kaaba. During the Hajj of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Bibi Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, when she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to make salat inside of the Kaaba, he took her there. He said, pray here, this is inside of the Kaaba. Okay, which makes it easy for us now, because if you want to pray inside the Kaaba, you don't have to wait for for them to open the door for you, because they won't. You can just go there and pray inside of the Kaaba. There's other significance to there as well. All right. The Kaaba has been destroyed various times. So a lot of people think, they read the story of Umrah and they think, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the Kaaba because of the Kaaba, which is not true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the Kaaba because of Rasulullah. So he tells us this in the Quran, in Surah Fil. We know the dua that Hazrat Abdul Muttalib radiallahu made, saying that, oh Allah, even a camel protects its young, or its child, so this is your house, so you protect it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not protect the Kaaba as the Lord of the Kaaba, even though He is the Lord of the Kaaba. He protected the Kaaba as the Lord of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is why He says, Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. That did you not see what your Lord, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what your Lord did to the people of the elephant? Because this was 55 days before the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and if he had allowed the Kaaba to be destroyed at that time, then, the people of Mecca would have been enslaved, which included the mother of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. When we look at, when Ibrahim al-Islam and Ismail al-Islam are raising the foundations of the Kaaba, when they complete the raising of the foundation of the Kaaba, they make a dua. And And so, the verse before that, it says, and remember Abraham and Ismail Islam raised the foundation. I'm just going to read the translation here. Raised the foundations of the house. Our Lord, and then they said, our Lord, accept from us, for thou art all hearing and knowing. Our Lord, make of us Muslims bowing to thy will, and of our progeny a people Muslim bowing to thy. And show us our places for the celebration of the rites, and turn unto us in mercy, for thou art oft forgiving, most merciful. Okay. The next part of the dua explains that they also understood the purpose of making the Kaaba. Okay. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not in need of a house. Every house is His anyway. Everything is His. They said, رَبَّنَا وَاغْفِرْ رَبَّنَا وَبَعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. Our Lord, send amongst them a messenger of their own. And here is رَبَّنَا وَبَعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا. So it's tanween of azmat. They're not just asking for any messenger, they're asking for that exalted messenger. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Go ahead and send him. And then they give the description of him. This exalted messenger of their own, who shall rehearse thy signs or recite your verses to them, and instruct them in the scripture and wisdom, and purify them, for thou art exalted in might and wise. Okay. We know the acceptance of this dua is mentioned in Surah Al Imran, the next surah, and the acceptance is done with a modification, and the modification is the order in which this is mentioned. The order, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the dua with the modification where He says, لَقَدْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ بَعَثَ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. When the description of the messenger is given, is that he recites the verses, he purifies them, and then he teaches the book and the wisdom. Because if there is no purification before the teaching of the book and the wisdom doesn't do you any good.
Which was in the original dua, right?
And the dua, the order is that he recites the sign or verses, teaches them the book and the wisdom, and then purifies them. But in the acceptance, the order is changed. Okay? So they understood why they're making the Kaaba. They're making the Kaaba to be the pulpit from where Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam begins his preaching. This is what the reality of the Kaaba is. It is the pulpit of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam where he started his mission. And his connection to the Kaaba, why is the Kaaba our Qibla? Because the Qibla initially was Masjid al-Aqsa. Yet whenever Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would make salat in Mecca, he would always come and pray from the side of Rukn Yamani, so that the Kaaba was between him and Masjid al-Aqsa. When he makes hijrah to Medina Munawwara, well, now the Kaaba is behind and Masjid al-Aqsa is this way. So you have a 180-degree change. Now he can't put the Kaaba between him and the Qibla. So this is why second year of Hijri, Dhuhr Salat, second rakat, only verse revealed in Salat, which is verse 144 of the same surah, Surah Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قَدْ نَرَى تَقَلَّبُ وَجْهِكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ فَلَنُوَلِّيَنَّكَ قِبْلَةً تَرْضَاهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to His beloved Sallallahu, we see the turning of thy face to the heavens. Now shall we turn thee to the Qibla that pleases you. And it actually says, soon we will do that. And then He says, go ahead and turn your face inside of the Salat. So the Qibla change took place in the Salat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not even wait till after Salat. Because why? The Qibla that pleases you. Why is the Kaaba our Qibla? Because this is the Qibla that pleases the Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If someplace else had pleased him, that would have been our Qibla. But the pleasure of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the pleasure of Allah. And so So again, the reality of the Kaaba is that is the pulpit of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so, yeah, if I get time, I'll come to Rukn Yamani in the end. So if I forget, remind me, but there are probably going to be other questions about this anyway. And we may need to carry this over next week. So we'll see. So this is important. When you look at the Kaaba, all of this should be things that you are seeing. Our Sheikh, one of our Sheikhs, Sayyid Muhammad Farooq Ahmad, he used to say that dhikr is not dhikr until it makes the madhkur apparent. So, if I'm making dhikr, if the one that I'm making dhikr of isn't apparent to me, I'm not making dhikr right. So when I'm remembering Allah, then the reality of Allah should be apparent to me. And you cannot remember Allah without remembering Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So those are important things to understand. So again, when you're making tawaf, this should also be that understanding that what are you making tawaf of? You're not just going around and around. When I went in 2003 for Hajj, I was sitting in Masjid Khif. This person from the shower, he came. He started speaking to me in Pashto because he thought I was from that area. I told him I don't speak Pashto. So then he started speaking to me in Urdu. So we were talking. He took me out and we went. And so he says, I asked him, how'd you get here? So he said, well, I'm working in Riyadh. He said, I had the choice to go to Dubai or Riyadh, and I chose Riyadh because I wanted to come for Hajj. He's a young guy. He must have been in his mid-20s. He says, but I'm probably going to get kicked out soon. I said, why? He said, I'm working for this guy in Riyadh, and, I told him I want to go for Hajj. He said, why do you want to go there? You just make tawaf, just go around my house. So he said, so I asked him, he said, have you ever made Hajj? He said, no. He said, he's 60-year-old. He said, I'll make Hajj when my father makes Hajj. His father's 90. Neither one of them have made Hajj. So, when you have that kind of mindset, and again, we should not have that kind of mindset when we're there that we're just going around something. We should know what we're doing and why we're doing this. Everything like we said at the beginning, everything we do should be for the pleasure of Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. And that is it. Okay. So, the Ramal, and this is important to note as well. As I said, Ramal is also not the Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So those first three movements that we make, and again, the ihram, opening the right shoulder, is not the Sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So why do we do it? When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came 6th year of Hijri, and he came with the companions with the intention of making Umrah. Quraysh did not allow them to enter, but the agreement was that they could come back the next year. Quraysh would leave Mecca for 3 days. The Muslims would occupy Mecca, make their Umrah, and after 3 days they would leave. So that next year when they were coming, the Quraysh had spread this, leaders amongst the Quraysh had spread the rumor that, this embargo, because Medina Munawwara was under embargo. They were, being sanctioned, and no one would do business with them, and all of these things, typical things that get done, when you don't like somebody. So they spread this rumor that, see, our embargo is working. These people, they're so weak, they don't have anything to eat, they're so weak, and all of this. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told the companions, when we arrive, when we make tawaf, open your arms, show them your strength. Mm-hmm. And when you make the tawaf, the first 3 rounds, you make it, you move firmly, rapidly, to show them your strength. So Quraysh, when they left, they went to the mountains around it, but they're still looking in. You know, that time you didn't have all the buildings blocking the view. And when they see this, they're like, oh, you know, astonished. All these rumors were wrong. This is all a lie. But even after that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't change it back. He left it the way it is. And this is why even today we do it this way. And even when he was there, he said, whoever shows them their strength, I guarantee him paradise. One point to note here also, as I said, the Kaaba as it is today is not the way Ibrahim al-Islam built it. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam conquered Makkah, he says to Bibi Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, he said to her, if your people were not new to this religion, I would have torn it down and rebuilt it in accordance to the way of Ibrahim alayhi salam. But because it would cause an issue, he didn't do it. And you had all these people who just entered Islam after fighting against him for 20 years, you know, and so he did, you know, so didn't want to create an issue. However, when Yazid destroyed the Kaaba, when he attacked in 64 Hijri and destroyed the Kaaba, Abdullah ibn Zubair, when he rebuilt it, and I'm making things short here, when he rebuilt it in the form of Ibrahim al-Islam because he knew this is the way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted it. Okay. Then 9 years later, when Abdul Malik bin Marwan conquered Kaaba and Hajjaj bin Yusuf, you know, martyred Abdullah ibn Zubair radiallahu anhu, you know, the statements were, oh, he rebuilt the Kaaba in a way that it wasn't during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All right. So Abdul Malik had it torn down and then rebuilt the way Quraysh had built it. There were other times when it was rebuilt, you know, because of various armies coming through. So again, that also tells you, you know, the protecting of the Kaaba during the time of Abraha was not protecting of the Kaaba; it was the protection of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The other things I won't keep jumping back and forth to as they come in. But I'm going to go forward now back to where the questions are. So he asked about the Ramal. He asked about the touching. He said, did you touch and kiss Hajar Aswad? And even if you're at a distance and you're simply pointing towards it, you're still touching it and kissing it. In reality, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did this to make it easy for the Ummah because he knew not everybody's going to be able to get there. This is also why when he started his tawaf at the Hajj, he simply pointed to it with his stick and he started the tawaf. And he kissed the end of the stick and he started the tawaf. So, you know, just remember that. So he asked him, he said, did you touch and kiss the Hajar Aswad? And he said, yes. And so now, you know, this Abu Bakr Shibli rahmatullah, just this feeling of awe overwhelms him. And he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that whoever touches the Hajar Aswad is as if he has shaken hands with Allah. Of course, this is metaphorical, and unfortunately these days you have to specify that. Okay, it's as if he has shaken hands with Allah, and whoever shakes hands with Allah has come under his security. He said, did you feel anything of that security? And he said, no. He said, you didn't touch the Hajar Aswad. You didn't kiss the Hajar Aswad. Okay. Now coming to the famous hadith that everybody knows, half of the hadith, where Umar radhiyallahu anhu is standing in front of the Hajar Aswad. And he says to Hajar Aswad, he says, oh, Hajar Aswad, I know you are only a stone and you cannot benefit me or harm me. And if I had not seen Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam kissing you, I would never have kissed you. So this is the half that everybody knows. The other half of the hadith is where Ali radhiyallahu anhu is standing behind Umar. radiallahu anhu. And Ali he says, oh Umar, don't say this. Because I have heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that this stone will harm some and benefit some. Because on the day of judgment it will testify to the iman of those who come before it with iman, and it will testify to the kufr of those who come before it without iman. Which also tells us that both types of people have to go there. Because otherwise, how is it going to testify to those without iman? So you're going to have people who with iman there and people without iman there. And these days it's so apparent because you've got all these YouTubers there.
Yeah.
Even though it was there before, but now it's wide out in the open. And these days, anybody who's connected with the government, come on in. It's interesting. When they built the clock tower, of course, it's a Gothic structure. But when they built it, the engineers and the company firm presidents and CEOs all took Shahada just so they could come into Makkah. Just for that reason. So they shouldn't have said Ashhadu la ilaha illallah. They should have said Ashhadu al-clock tower. Because that's what they were saying from their heart. Yeah. So, again. Yeah. So my father also, he asked one of our sheikhs, Sayyid Muhammad Farooq Ahmed, rahmatullah alayh, he asked him, he went for Hajj in 94. My father went in 74 and then again in 94. And you're going to see people there that are picking pockets, that are doing things that are totally un-Islamic. So my father asked, the sheikh, he said, why are these people, how are they?
I understand why.
Yeah, I understand why all these good people are there, but what about these other people?
How do they
come?
Yeah.
So he said to him, he said, when Ibrahim al-Islam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered Ibrahim al-Islam to make the call, and Ibrahim al-Islam, and it's mentioned in the Quran, Ibrahim al-Islam says, who's going to hear him? He's in the middle of nowhere. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you make the call, I will send the call. And so when he made the call, everybody's heard his call. Those who were present in the world at that time and those who had not even yet been born. Every soul heard the call. Those who responded to his call are the ones who are able to go for the Hajj.
With iman.
With iman. All right. When Shaitan sees this, he says to Allah, where's my share in this? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him respite. He says, where's my share in this? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you make a call. So he also made a call. And this part's not mentioned in the Quran, but it is there. So he also made the call. And whoever responded to his call are the ones who are coming to there, doing all of these indecent things. And doing all of, and you will see this. But these are the distractions you have to overlook. You have to be focused on why you're there. Because they're also part of the test for you. That you see all of these things, you got to stay focused on what you're there for. You cannot and you cannot let those distractions. And now, of course, even the clock tower is a distraction. Everybody's taking a selfie with the clock tower. Making tawaf and making sure they get the clock tower in between. Literally, you see that.
Or even on the plane, the knots, and they have the clock tower showing up.
Yeah.
The knots and,
Yeah. That, again, if you're making firm intention, none of that should come into play. Yeah. So then he asked him, he said, did you make 2 rakat at Maqam Ibrahim? And he said, yes. He said, at that moment, did you feel yourself exalted to that honorable position at which you have been placed? He said, did you feel that? And he said, no. He said, well, you didn't make 2 rakat Maqam Ibrahim. So now the question is, what is Maqam Ibrahim? So you have to understand what Maqam Ibrahim is physically as well as in reality. Physical maqam Ibrahim is the stone. When Ibrahim al-Islam was making or raising the foundations of the Kaaba, when the wall started getting too high, Ismail al-Islam brought this huge stone and placed it in the middle. And so Ibrahim al-Islam would stand on that stone and would place the stones of the Kaaba. The interesting thing about that stone is that wherever Ibrahim al-Islam needed to go, it would go. So if he's standing, and of course, you're building in this corner, the stone would go to that corner. And then he would put the stone there and move. One of the miracles of the prophets is that when they want to, even the hard stones will take their imprint. And when they want to, even the soft sand will not, there will be no print. So if you look at Maqam Ibrahim, if you're able to get close enough to be able to see it, because it's encased in that glass now, you can still, in 91 when I went, you could still see that footprint. In 2003 when I went, they had encircled it with silver lining for whatever reason, because you could clearly see it, but it's still there. Okay. So this is one interesting thing, that even the stones that touch the feet of the prophets have the knowledge of the unseen. Because where Ibrahim al-Islam wanted to go, he's not telling the stone, I want to go here or there. It just goes automatically. That is something that's in his heart or in his thoughts. And yet the stone that's touching him knows this. But when I say maqam really is status or position. So when we say maqam Ibrahim, we're talking about this position of Ibrahim al-Salam. In order to understand the position of Ibrahim al-Salam, you have to understand the story of Ibrahim al-Salam when he's being catapulted into the fire. So here, it's interesting, when I went in 2003, my wife was in Medina Munawwara. She was in the women's section. And they always have these people talking, spewing the government propaganda. Because those are the only people that are allowed to speak there, because if anybody else speaks, they put them in jail. So this woman, of course, and they home in on the women because they know the women control the household these days. Whatever the aqidah of the women is, that's the men follow suit. It used to be the other way around. So they know if they can corrupt the women, then it makes it easier for them to corrupt the family. So this woman is talking, and she's talking to her because they got these people that they pay, from Pakistan and India as well. And so she's talking about, see Ibrahim al-Salam, when he's being thrown into the fire, and Jibreel al-Salam comes and says, I'm here to help you. And Ibrahim al-Salam, no, I'm not going to take any help from you. I'm only going to ask help from Allah. So you can only ask help from Allah. Of course, their hit is that you can't ask the prophets, you can't ask any of the ones Allah loves. And that is the implication. The interesting thing is they have to change the whole story in order to make their mindset fit, their narrative fit. Because if you look at the actual story, what is the actual story? Of course, cutting it short, Namrud builds this huge fire. They build this fire so big that they can't even get close enough to throw him in. So now how do we put him in? So they're going to catapult him in, right? They tie him up, they put him in the catapult, they're getting ready to throw him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at all of this. Of course, he's seeing everything anyway. But I mentioned this specifically for a reason. You'll see that why. And the angels are in an uproar. They say, oh Allah, your friend, your Khalil, what is happening to him? We want to help him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Jibreel, fine, go ask him if he wants your help. So they come. Jibreel comes and he says, I'm here, I'm ready to help you. So he asked him, he said, did Allah send you? And he said, did you come by the command of Allah? He says, no, I came by his permission. You know, it's a difference where Allah ordered him go and do this, like he orders Jibreel alayhi salam to catch Yusuf alayhi salam before he falls into the well. And there's a difference where Jibreel alayhi salam says, Ya Allah, let me go. And this is that, Ya Allah, let me go. Does it go? Ask him. He says, then so he says, I came by his permission. So again, Ibrahim alayhi salam simply asked him, he says, is Allah seeing me? He says, yes, of course. But it doesn't mean seeing in the sense that seeing. He's seeing, is he looking at me with his pleasure? Is he pleased with me? He says, yes, of course he's pleased with me. He said, then go, I don't need you. If Allah is pleased with me being in this condition, then I am pleased with being in this condition. This is the maqam of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Radi bi rada. He is pleased with whatever condition Allah is pleased with him in. That is it. There is no place in the Quran, there is no place in any hadith where anybody can show me that Ibrahim alayhi salam made the supplication that Allah save me from this, because he did not. You know, we see in the Quran, like Yunus alayhi salam, he's making the dua. We see various other prophets making various other dua. But that is not the maqam of Ibrahim. Ibrahim alayhi salam is pleased as long as Allah is pleased with him. And this is what Abu Bakr Shibli rahmatullah is asking his student, did you attain that maqam? When you made those 2 rakat at maqam Ibrahim, did you attain that maqam? That so long as Allah is pleased with you, that you are pleased. And so this is what he's asking here. So, you know, so don't get caught up in all of the propaganda that these people spew. Because again, if they say, okay, Ibrahim alayhi salam only asked Allah, okay, well, what did he ask Allah? Show me the dua that he asked Allah through. Because if he asked, then it should be in the Quran or it should be in the Hadith somewhere. And it's not. It's nowhere. Because he didn't ask anything. Again, these are very, very high levels that that should be our goals to attain, and things that we should work for. I'm going to cut things very short. I got 3 minutes. All right. Safa and Marwa, important note here to make. I mentioned that verse in the beginning that you're supposed to recite, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you know, that verily Safa and Marwa are the signs of Allah, verse 158, Surah Baqarah. And there is no blame or no sin in you if you go there. Why is that even a question there? Right. And actually I'm going to go overboard a little bit, because there's another thing I need to come back to Maqam Ibrahim, because it relates to this as well. So if you look at the history of Safa and Marwa, we know who ran there, Bibi Hajar. Why did she run there? Because of her son. Who is that son? Ismail alayhi salam. He's not just any son. He's the son who is carrying the nur of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through whose progeny will come Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That distinguishes him from everyone else. This is why her running is distinguished from everyone else's running. There are many mothers who do many things for their children, many sacrifices for their children. But we're not commanded to follow their sacrifice. Yet we're commanded to follow the sacrifice or the running of Bibi Hajra. She went to Safa, and then she comes down because she's looking for someone who's passing by who might have something. She comes down, she goes, and then when she the place that we run, those 2 green lights, that was a dip. At that point, she could no longer see Ismail alayhi salam. That's why she ran and rushed through there, so she could come back to that point where she could see him again. Because this whole time she's looking at him. So this is why, you know, you go. This is that mark there. But later on what happens is that there were 2 people, Naila and Isaf, man and a woman, who were in Makkah and decided to do some indecent act. And they wanted to do this where no one could see them, so they said, well, what better place than inside the Kaaba, because no one comes inside the Kaaba. So they went inside the Kaaba, and this is hundreds of years before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They committed this act, and as a punishment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fossilized them there. So the people, when they found them, they took one of them and put them on Safa and put the other one on Marwa, so that this would be a lesson for everybody else. Okay. Later on, what happens though is, when Amr bin Luay Khuzai introduces idol worship into Makkah, which is a few hundred years before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they start worshiping these idols, and then along with the other idols, they also started worshiping these two. Okay. So these were two of their goddesses, even though one of them should have been a god. Okay. But they called them all goddesses. So of course, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam comes and conquers Makkah and all of the idols are cleaned out, Abu Bakr and Umar then clean out all the idols around the Kaaba. Ali goes inside of the Kaaba with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, clean out all the idols inside of the Kaaba. So now, some of the people are saying, oh, how can we go there, because this was this place of idol worship. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says there's no blame in you for going there. This is why he mentions that specifically. Okay. 2 points that I'll end with. One is coming back to Maqam Ibrahim. We make these 2 rakat at Maqam Ibrahim. This is not the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is not the sunnah of anybody until the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The verse in Surah Baqarah, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى, and take the maqam of Ibrahim alayhi salam as a place of salat. Why was this part of the verse revealed? And this was revealed because this was revealed in honor of Umar. He comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want to make sajda to Allah where Ibrahim alayhi salam stood. I want to make salat where Ibrahim alayhi salam stood. So the other companions, they said, yeah, Umar, what are you saying? We just left worshipping these rocks. What are you talking about? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the verse in honor of Umar. And so we make those 2 rakat there. And the Kaaba, even though for 400 years, 500 years, before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and of the 63 years of his apparent life, 61 of those, the Kaaba is surrounded by idols. It is the headquarters for idol worship. Right? Yet, even then, it's still the Kaaba, because the foundations were honorable. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in Surah Tawbah. And when he talks about Masjid Dirar, which unfortunately is many places these days, where he says that the foundation, the place whose foundation was laid in piety from the beginning is not equal to the place whose foundation was not laid in piety. So if we look at Masjid of the Kaaba, we look at the Masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Masjid of Quba, these foundations were laid by the prophets. Masjid al-Aqsa, the foundation is laid by the prophets, and who can be more pious than the prophets? And so even though you had this place that, in appearance might be a place of idol worship, but it's still the Kaaba. It is still, this sanctified place. And even like when you look at Masjid Dirar, which was destroyed, and even when it's destroyed,
Commanded to be destroyed, because this is the place where they're going to talk or downplay the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the reasoning that Jibreel alayhi salam comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with, that they will talk against you here, not directly but indirectly, challenging your knowledge, challenging your authority, challenging all of these things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders it be destroyed before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam returns from Tabuk. And so it is destroyed. And the interesting thing about that place, that the curse of Allah is on that place in such a way that even the person who later on bought that piece of land and built a house while he was in that house, never had children until he moved out of that house. Yeah. Time's up. There's a lot more left. Inshallah, we'll cover this next week. Again, the physical aspects of the Umrah are very simple, and we went over those in the first 30 minutes. The reality of the Umrah, the reality of that place is very different. And we shouldn't be simply going just to go through the motions. We should be going to really gain something. And so that's why we're going over this, inshallah. Yeah, I'm not going to open up for questions because time's up. We'll do questions next week. We'll do questions later. Trying to think. Yeah. And there's a lot of other stuff that I overlooked, and we'll try to get this uploaded soon, inshallah. When are you leaving?
Whenever you pick me up.
No, I mean leaving for Umrah.
19th.
Okay, 19th. And
Mine is 29th November.
okay, yeah. So next month, inshallah. Yeah.
If I forget, when you go to Medina Sharif, present all of our salams.
To Rasulullah. And we'll go over some of that next week too, inshallah, when you visit Medina Munawwar. Any quick questions? Good. Inshallah. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept and make this, and accept people's umrahs and hajj and all of our deeds, inshallah. And may He fill our hearts with His true love and the true love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those whom they love. And may He give strength and protection to our brothers and sisters that are being oppressed in Gaza and Palestine and wherever the people are being oppressed, and give them victory over their oppressors. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Salam. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar,